The afternoon sun gleamed off the polished black luxury car parked by the curb, its surface reflecting the world in glossy perfection. A young black woman stood nearby, her posture confident yet relaxed, her fingers deftly adjusting the coils of her hair in the mirrored surface of the car window. She was unaware of the attention she had drawn, lost in the simple, personal ritual of grooming herself before stepping into the day. There was a quiet dignity in the way she moved, each twist, each careful adjustment, a statement of pride and self-respect. Inside the car, a man of immense wealth and influence sat behind dark-tinted windows, his gaze unexpectedly fixed on her. The billionaire had seen many things in his life: power, opulence, and beauty in forms curated for status and admiration. Yet, nothing had caught his attention like this. There was an authenticity in her, an effortless grace that contrasted sharply with the world he usually inhabited. Her confidence was magnetic, her expression calm but aware, as if she carried a world of self-possession that fascinated him. He leaned forward slightly, his curiosity deepening. There was something about the way she interacted with her own reflection, the subtle pride she held in her identity, that made him pause. He realized he had never been so captivated by someone simply existing in their own skin. It wasn't just her beauty, it was the way she moved through the world, self-assured and grounded, yet approachable. A thrill of intrigue coursed through him as he watched her adjust one last strand before turning away, walking down the sidewalk with poise. He knew instantly that he wanted to know her, not as a fleeting amusement, but as a person who had awakened a curiosity in him that no amount of money or influence could ever satisfy. The moment was brief, but the impact would linger, setting the stage for a story neither of them could have predicted. She moved through the city with a quiet determination that belied the weight she carried. Her life was a careful balance of work, family obligations, and personal ambition, each day a testament to her resilience. From the outside, she might have appeared carefree, but those who knew her understood the strength required to navigate a world that often underestimated her. She worked long hours at a modest job, one that demanded both mental acuity and emotional energy, yet she never allowed herself to complain. Pride and a strong sense of responsibility guided her, shaping a woman who refused to let circumstances define her worth. Her independence was not a shield against connection, but a declaration of self-respect. She lived by her principles, valuing honesty, integrity, and perseverance above superficial gains. While others might have chased fame or luxury, she found satisfaction in small, meaningful victories. Completing a challenging project at work, helping a friend in need, or simply maintaining her composure in the face of adversity. Every step she took was measured, deliberate, and reflective of her inner strength. Yet her life was not without struggle. She faced financial constraints, the pressures of societal expectations, and the subtle, persistent microaggressions that came with navigating spaces that were not always welcoming to her. Each obstacle tested her patience, her resourcefulness, and her ability to remain grounded. She often reminded herself that her identity was not something to negotiate, it was a foundation on which she could build her dreams. Despite the challenges, she nurtured aspirations that extended beyond her immediate world. She dreamed of creating opportunities for herself and others, of building a future where her voice and actions could inspire change. She saw the value in persistence, in showing up even when the odds were stacked against her. Her hair, her style, her confidence in the way she presented herself were outward expressions of an inner pride that no circumstance could diminish. What made her extraordinary was not merely the elegance she carried in public spaces, but the depth of her character, the combination of strength and vulnerability, hope and realism. She was more than her appearance, more than a fleeting image reflected in a car window. She was a woman fully aware of her worth, unwavering in her convictions, and ready to embrace the possibilities that life, and perhaps unexpected encounters, might bring. The billionaire had seen countless faces, each carefully curated for glamour or social status. Beautiful women surrounded him constantly, models at galas, socialites at charity events, companions whose smiles were rehearsed and whose conversations were shallow. In all his wealth and exposure, authenticity was rare, and he had grown accustomed to the performative nature of admiration. Yet, the moment he noticed her, something shifted. He was unprepared for the impact of a simple, unguarded moment. A young black woman, adjusting her hair in a car window, unaware of the attention she had drawn. At first, it was subtle curiosity. There was a magnetic quality in her presence, the way she held herself with natural poise, yet without arrogance. Her beauty wasn't manufactured or displayed for approval, it existed effortlessly, unassuming but undeniable. He realized that he had been staring longer than was polite, but he couldn't look away. Unlike the women in his usual circles, she didn't seem to expect recognition or validation from anyone. That independence, that quiet confidence, intrigued him more than the most extravagant gown or the most dazzling smile ever had. As he observed her, admiration deepened into fascination. He noticed small details: the careful way she checked her reflection, the subtle strength in her posture, the way her eyes, even in reflection, held intelligence and thoughtfulness. It was more than appearance, it was presence, a quality he rarely encountered in people who surrounded him. He felt a pang of something unfamiliar, a stirring of genuine interest untainted by expectation or manipulation. He contrasted this with his prior experiences, recalling nights of superficial encounters and hollow conversations. None of those fleeting moments had felt real. None had elicited curiosity that reached beyond surface-level appeal. This woman's authenticity challenged his perceptions, compelling him to lean closer, to take in every detail, not as a conquest, but as a mystery he wanted to understand. He realized in that brief instant that he had been captivated not just by her beauty, but by the essence of who she was, a combination of strength, authenticity, and grace that no amount of wealth or power could manufacture. The billionaire parked his car a little farther down the street, debating whether to approach or simply admire from afar. He hated impulsive decisions, yet something about her presence demanded action. When she struggled slightly with a strap on her bag, as if adjusting it awkwardly while balancing her hair, he seized the moment. Stepping forward with a carefully measured smile, he cleared his throat. "Excuse me," he said gently, "I couldn't help but notice, your hair is incredible. The way you styled it is flawless." She looked up, startled at first, her eyes narrowing slightly in cautious curiosity. There was a flicker of hesitation, as though she were weighing whether his words were genuine or another form of empty flattery. But there was a sincerity in his tone, a calmness that contrasted sharply with the usual attention she received from strangers. She relaxed just enough to offer a small, polite smile. "Thank you," she replied, her voice warm but measured. She had learned long ago to guard her reactions, especially around people who might view her as an object of amusement or admiration. Yet something about his approach felt different, direct, respectful, almost disarmingly human. He nodded, choosing his words carefully, aware that first impressions mattered. It's rare to see someone carry themselves with such confidence and style naturally. Most people spend so much time performing for attention, but it just feels real. His eyes met hers, searching for acknowledgement without overstepping, and he felt a spark of excitement at the unspoken connection. For a brief moment, the world around them seemed to pause. Her heart skipped a beat, unsure whether to be flattered or suspicious, while his mind raced with thoughts of her authenticity and presence. Neither wanted the encounter to end, but practicality and circumstance demanded brevity. As she walked away, their glances lingered, and a quiet electricity hung between them. Both carried the memory with them, replaying the words, the smile, the fleeting yet profound sense that something extraordinary had begun, something that neither wealth nor social status could predict or control. She walked away, her steps purposeful but her mind racing. The encounter replayed in her thoughts, each detail examined and questioned. Who was he really? A man of obvious wealth, judging by the sleek car and the quiet confidence in his stance. Her first instinct was skepticism. She had learned early on not to trust smooth words or charming strangers, especially those who flaunted power or money. Compliments from someone like him often came with hidden motives, and her experiences had taught her to protect herself first. Yet, despite her caution, something about him lingered in her mind. It wasn't the luxury or the superficial charm, it was the authenticity she had sensed, fleeting as it might have been. He hadn't rushed her, hadn't stared with entitlement, and his words felt considered, genuine rather than rehearsed. She found herself replaying the compliment, noting the careful way he had spoken, the subtle respect in his tone. For the first time in a long while, a stranger's admiration didn't feel invasive, it felt human. Still, her guarded nature wouldn't allow her to relax completely. She reminded herself of the countless women who had been deceived by men like him, swept up by wealth or status only to discover empty intentions. She had seen friends manipulated by charm and power, their trust exploited. Could she allow herself to be curious without being foolish? Could she see beyond the exterior without being naive? Her thoughts drifted to her own life, her independence, her struggles, and the pride she took in her achievements. She refused to let anyone, no matter how wealthy or intriguing, undermine her sense of self. And yet, there was an undeniable pull, a curiosity she couldn't ignore. The encounter had sparked a question. Who was this man beneath the polish, the luxury, and the image of perfection? As she continued down the street, her heart remained cautious but alert, her mind alive with wonder. She couldn't predict where this strange electric meeting might lead, but for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to hope that someone could see her. Not just her appearance, not just her hair, but the real person she was. The billionaire found himself thinking about her constantly, the memory of that brief encounter replaying in his mind. Her presence lingered like a melody he couldn't forget, a combination of strength, grace, and authenticity that defied the superficiality of his usual world. He knew he wanted to see her again, but this time he resolved to approach with care. He would respect her independence while finding a way to earn her trust. He began by learning about the places she frequented. A local cafe she often visited, a community center where she volunteered, even a small boutique she preferred over high-end stores. He traced her daily routines quietly, careful not to intrude but determined to encounter her naturally. When he arrived at the community event she attended, he stayed in the background, observing how she interacted with others, how her laughter was genuine, how she engaged people with warmth and attentiveness. He marveled at her ability to navigate life with dignity and presence, each interaction reinforcing his admiration. Yet, he understood that persistence alone would not win her over. He resisted the urge to make grand gestures or flaunt his wealth, knowing such tactics would only reinforce the barriers she had built around herself. Instead, he found subtle ways to intersect with her life, offering assistance when she struggled with heavy packages, ensuring she never felt patronized, and occasionally appearing in situations where their paths might cross naturally. Each encounter was brief but meaningful, leaving her with a sense of sincerity rather than pressure. Through these measured steps, he sought to prove that his interest was genuine, that he valued her as a person rather than a fleeting fascination. He admired her independence and had no intention of undermining it. He wanted her to feel empowered in his presence, not beholden to it. Slowly, she began to notice him more consciously, his respectful demeanor, his attentiveness without intrusion. A quiet intrigue grew on both sides, each encounter deepening the connection while allowing her the space to maintain her agency. By blending persistence with restraint, he demonstrated that his intentions were more than impulsive infatuation. It was a careful dance of patience and respect, a recognition that meaningful connections could not be forced but earned. Each meeting, each shared moment, set the stage for something deeper, something neither of them had anticipated when their paths first crossed at the car window. Their growing connection was not without tension, for the worlds they inhabited were shaped by vastly different forces. On one side stood the billionaire, a man accustomed to power, wealth, and influence. His days were filled with high-stakes meetings, opulent events, and the constant expectation to maintain an image of perfection. Luxury was second nature to him, and decision-making was often guided by privilege rather than necessity. On the other side was the woman whose life had been carved from determination, modesty, and hard work. She valued simplicity, community, and authenticity, qualities that money could not buy and influence could not fabricate. When their worlds intersected, misunderstandings were inevitable. He offered gestures he thought were thoughtful, yet she occasionally bristled at the implication that she needed assistance. A ride in his sleek car or a ticket to a private event, though innocent in his intention, sometimes felt overwhelming to her. She had learned to navigate life with caution, wary of people who assumed access could replace understanding. Conversely, he struggled to understand her hesitation, mistaking it for distance or disinterest, not realizing it was a reflection of her independent spirit rather than rejection. Social pressures compounded their challenges. Friends and colleagues on his side questioned his fascination with someone from a completely different social stratum, whispering doubts about her intentions or suitability. On her side, she felt the subtle scrutiny of her community, wary of judgments about a woman involved with a man so far removed from her everyday experiences. Gossip, assumptions, and societal expectations threatened to cloud the authenticity of their bond, making every interaction a delicate negotiation of trust and perception. Yet beneath the tension lay genuine curiosity and admiration. He admired her grounded nature, her ability to navigate life with clarity and integrity. She, in turn, saw a vulnerability beneath his wealth, moments of sincerity that revealed a man capable of humility and genuine connection. Every clash of perspective became an opportunity to understand one another more deeply, revealing that love between worlds so different required patience, empathy, and the willingness to embrace contrasts rather than resist them. Their interactions were not smooth, but the friction illuminated their differences while also highlighting the possibility of unity, a union that could transcend social boundaries, proving that connection was as much about understanding and compromise as it was about attraction. Over time, she began to notice the subtle ways he respected her boundaries. He didn't push for grand displays of affection or flaunt his wealth to impress her. Instead, he listened, truly listened, when she spoke about her day, her aspirations, and the challenges she faced. His questions were thoughtful, never intrusive, and his presence was steady, offering support without overshadowing her independence. Slowly, the walls she had built around herself began to soften, allowing him to step closer without feeling threatened or patronized. He admired her resilience more than anything. Every challenge she navigated, every obstacle she overcame, only deepened his fascination. It wasn't her beauty or the elegance she carried with her, it was her strength, her ability to remain grounded in a world that often demanded compromise of her values. He recognized that wealth and privilege had shaped his life in ways she could never fully understand, yet he never used them as leverage. His respect for her autonomy made her cautious curiosity evolve into a tentative trust. Small gestures spoke louder than any words. When he noticed her struggling with a heavy package, he offered discreet assistance. When she mentioned her favorite cafe, he would occasionally be there, not as a coincidence, but as a silent acknowledgement that he paid attention to the details of her life. These acts were understated, yet they conveyed a message far stronger than flashy displays of wealth. He valued her for who she was, not for what she could offer or symbolize in his world. Gradually, she allowed herself to let him in, observing his sincerity and feeling the authenticity that had initially drawn her attention. The connection between them deepened, built on trust, respect, and a mutual recognition of each other's humanity. She began to believe that a relationship could exist without compromise of identity, that love could be grounded in understanding rather than expectation. In these small, meaningful interactions, the foundation for something genuine and enduring began to take shape, setting the stage for a bond that neither wealth nor circumstance could define. As their bond deepened, the couple began to face pressures neither had anticipated. The billionaire's world was filled with scrutiny, and his interest in someone from a vastly different background did not go unnoticed. Whispers spread through his elite circles. Friends, colleagues, and business associates questioned his judgment, some openly mocking the idea that someone so grounded and modest could capture his attention. Invitations to exclusive events suddenly carried a subtle tension, the polite smiles masking judgment and speculation. He felt the weight of expectation pressing down, forcing him to reconcile his personal desires with the rigid social codes of his world. Meanwhile, in her own community, murmurs of suspicion emerged. People she had trusted began to question her motives, wondering if she sought access to wealth or status rather than genuine connection. Casual conversations carried undertones of judgment, and she felt the sting of envy and misunderstanding. The woman, who had always prided herself on independence and authenticity, struggled with the fear that entering his world might mean losing herself, or that others would misinterpret her intentions and compromise the integrity of her reputation. Despite the growing tension, their personal connection remained strong, yet these external pressures could not be ignored. Every outing, every public appearance became a balancing act, requiring careful navigation of social expectations and personal boundaries. They faced the question that now loomed over them. Could their love survive the collision of two worlds so different in culture, wealth, and perception? Internally, both wrestled with uncertainty. She feared compromising her values, her identity, or the life she had built independently. He feared losing her trust, feeling torn between societal expectations and the authenticity of their connection. Their private moments became charged with unspoken anxieties, yet also with a determination to see the relationship endure. Ultimately, the conflict forced them to confront the essence of their feelings, whether the bond they shared was worth the scrutiny, the judgment, and the sacrifices required to bridge the divide. Each had to weigh love against fear, connection against caution, and in doing so, they discovered the strength to face the obstacles together, testing the depth of trust and commitment that had begun to define their extraordinary relationship. They faced the challenges head-on, refusing to let judgment, societal expectations, or whispers from both their worlds dictate their connection. The woman realized that love should not come with conditions, compromises, or sacrifices of self-respect. She had spent much of her life navigating expectations, defending her independence, and prioritizing others' perceptions over her own desires. Yet, in his presence, she felt seen, not for what she could offer, but for who she truly was. That recognition was powerful, affirming that she deserved a love that celebrated her identity rather than challenged it. For him, the journey was equally transformative. Accustomed to a life of wealth and privilege, he had often measured success in material terms: power, influence, and the ability to command attention. Yet, in her authenticity, he discovered a form of richness he had never known. True wealth, he realized, was not in possessions or social accolades. It was in the depth of connection, the honesty of emotion, and the trust that grew between two people who valued one another without artifice. Together, they made a conscious choice to honor that bond. Public scrutiny, elite expectations, and community judgment faded in importance compared to the sincerity they shared. They learned to navigate their worlds side by side, embracing differences while strengthening the common ground of respect, admiration, and genuine affection. In choosing each other, they affirmed that love could transcend societal divides and that happiness was rooted not in conformity, but in authenticity. She embraced the security of being valued wholly, while he embraced a wealth measured not by currency but by trust, understanding, and emotional connection. Their story, born from a fleeting glance in a car window, culminated in a union defined by mutual respect, unconditional love, and the courage to prioritize each other above all else.